In honor of free agency starting today, we'd like to announce that Christian has been extended for 7 years. Just to go along with the
Yes.
trends of every single NHL player getting a 7-year extension today, we would like to announce that Christian is here to stay.
This was the news I was waiting for. Man, I've been waiting for weeks. My contract was expiring. The talks went in for months on end. I went radio silent for a while. Man, it was like 2 solid months where I just
His
didn't even
agent
talk to you
wasn't
guys.
very happy that
Mm-mm.
his equipment was being used by another person for an episode.
Yep. JP broke my mic too. I was at my wit's end. I really was. But you know what? I'm glad to be back, and this place is my home, and it always will be my home.
We don't have any comment on if JP will be extended
I
at the
was gonna
moment.
say, what the hell?
We're not tendering his RFA rights just yet.
Well, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Sabre Roundtable. My name is Jonah,
I'm Christian.
I'm JP.
and as always, we'll be talking to you about all things Buffalo Sabres hockey and even a little bit of the wider NHL. Today, well, by the time you're listening to this, yesterday, free agency, free agent frenzy, and if you ask me, it earned that title because this is one of the craziest free agent classes, free agency July 1st, I can remember in some time.
Yeah, it was quite the explosion. And thank you to all the insiders who broke all the news before noon just to ruin the fun.
But that's the thing. Usually they do. Even today, like there were still surprises like an hour in. Like there was still top guys on the market that you had no idea where they were going as the clock struck 12. Like who had Tyler Toffoli going to San Jose for 4 years? I saw one report that he might go back there, and I don't think it was from one of the big guys.
Hmm. I had wasn't on my board. A lot
That
of
was
surprises today.
that was the one guy I was really holding out hope for. I'm not gonna lie. Like going into today, I was like, you know what? Like he's not the biggest name, but I think he'd really help us. We give to Foley and goes to the Sharks under my career.
Good
Well,
contract too,
yeah.
or good AAV at least. We'll see how it ages, but good for Greer and Co.
Feel
Big
like
weekend
everyone
for
gets
him.
good contracts but us. Everybody but us gets the good contracts. And you know what? We've only done it to ourselves, so I guess we can't cry about it too much.
Yeah, that's for certain. So today we are going to be talking about everything that the Sabres did in day one of free agency, and honestly, it was quite a lot. Honestly, probably more than I would have expected, I suppose. And I think Kevyn Adams had a good day. I think, for the most part. Now we can get into it because it's not, I don't think it's written in stone that he had a good day, but it's more so he had a good day off the premise that such and such happens afterwards.
Hmm.
So to get right into it, the Sabres made 5 signings today. 5 signings. They signed Jason Zucker to a 1-year deal worth $5 million. They signed Sam Lafferty to a 2-year deal worth $4 million. They signed Nicolas Aube-Kubel to a 1-year deal worth $1.5 million. They re-signed Jacob Bryson to a 1-year deal worth $900K. And they signed Dennis Gilbert to a 1-year deal worth $800K. So, off the top, where should we? Do you think we should start at the top with Zucker, or should we start at the bottom and work our way up?
Um, have we talked about Beck Malenstyn too?
We can talk about Beck Malenstyn. Why don't we? Sure.
You throw him in
Yeah,
there?
Because he is in this. He might as well be a free agent
Right.
addition. Okay, so last time we recorded, day one or night one of the NHL draft, the Sabres picked Constantinius. We were all very satisfied with the pick for anybody that didn't listen to the past episode. But we had a lot to say in our post-draft thoughts. And it was mostly like, hey, this is fine. This is fine that you kept the pick. But what you do in the following days, obviously it's going to determine your off season, and not acquiring really anything going into free agency would be a massive risk. So how does Kevyn Adams counter with that? Well, he trades pick number 43 in the second round to the Washington Capitals for Beck Malenstyn. Now I'm going to ask you two this question. Did you know what a Beck Malenstyn was
No clue.
when that trade was broke?
No idea.
Not at all. I did not know who he was.
I have to say, I feel like I take pride in the fact that I am a hardcore NHL fan. I feel like I have a firm grasp on basically everybody in the league. At least I can see a name and know, at the very least, know they exist. I had no idea who Beck Malenstyn was. When I first saw the name, it looked like a dope name, and I was like, "Oh, did we get a prospect or something?" No, we didn't. But to get right into it, so the Sabres trade pick number 43 for Beck Malenstyn. Long story short, he played 81 games for the Washington Capitals last season. He's a fourth liner. He spent most of his time with Nick Dowd and soon-to-be signed Nicolas Aube-Kubel on the Capitals for that season in very sheltered defensive minutes. And in that role, he was a forechecker. He killed penalties, blocked shots. He hit everything in sight, led the Capitals forwards in hits. Might have been their team, actually. That's the type of player he is. So a second-round pick. That was really the main discourse. Does that player need to be acquired for a second-round pick?
No, definitely not. But that's just how it was going to go for us. We, backs against the wall. We need guys, and it's not an easy place to be right now in Buffalo, New York. So you're gonna have to overpay, and that's for anyone.
I mean, Kevyn said in his press conference that when a team still wants a player and likes a player, it's going to take more to get him away. So I think that's definitely part of it. The Capitals probably weren't looking to get rid of him, but Kevyn was interested. And the other thing that I think that the Sabres front office was really thinking is we basically got this second rounder for free. If you want to look at it that way, we moved back 3 spots. We still got arguably the guy they wanted, and we got a second round pick in that deal. So we use that second round pick to make our squad better, even if it's a little bit of an overpay. It wasn't our pick originally.
Yeah, and that guy's just going to be, you take the pick, guess what? That's just another person in your system. Just another guy out of the 1,000 we have currently.
I think the only reason it starts to look worse as the draft went on, because that was before the draft. That was 5 minutes before.
Later, 10 minutes later, it began to look terrible.
Yeah, there's some other trades.
I mean, the round kicks off. Well, I think kicks off, or it was the second pick. Mikhail Sergachev goes to the Utah Hockey Club in a blockbuster. But then John Marino, 2 second-round picks, goes also to the Utah Hockey Club. And then obviously the day before, Andrew Mangiapane went to Washington for a second-round pick. So if you're Washington, you basically traded Andrew Mangiapane for Beck Malenstyn. So it didn't look great. And it's not going to look great. That's not a player you should be acquiring for a second-round pick. It's the only defense I can sort of give is he's an RFA, so there's some team control there. I don't know. At the end of the day, with a guy who has played as little in the NHL as he has, getting a second-round pick is just, it doesn't look great. But you know what? We talked about it a lot last episode. If you have to overpay to get your guy, then so be it. That's the position you're in. The other thing to talk about with this trade is supposedly who was pounding the table for it. The pro scouting staff. I can only guess that they were very much into his heavy forechecking game, his bang and crash game. He does have a decent amount of breakaway speed. They were probably into that, and he's was he 6'4", I think. So there's some physical attributes there that they were definitely after. And the other, he's 6'3", and the other person that was supposedly pounding the table was Seth Appert. This is an interesting part of the discussion because Seth Appert saw a lot of him in the AHL Conference Finals 2 years ago when the Amherst lost to the Hershey Bears. And look, Malenstyn was great that series, and I understand that. Supposedly, he was just he might as well have said the Amherst were scared of him. That's the AHL. It's the AHL. Like,
Completely different.
I get it if that's your guy, but I just hope they're not buying too much into that second round pick. You know, your assistant coach is banging the table for him. I don't know. I don't think it's the way you should scout players more times than not.
I will say, so I re-listened to our episode today just because I listen to stuff at work. So it was after the fact. And before we made the trade, I said, if we make a trade with one of our picks, you can't be upset with what it is. And you guys were like, yeah, I agree, but also I kind of disagree. That's kind of where I'm at with this. Everybody wanted a pick to be traded. We got a guy who's probably going to be on our roster, even if he's the 12th or 13th forward. At least he did something. And I know that's not saying much, but it was something.
And yeah, congrats.
Round of applause for doing something.
Yeah, finally.
Hooray.
We got something going on here. I mean, I don't hate it. They're obviously going in a specific direction with their bottom six, as we'll get into. But I don't know, man. I'm still waiting for that, one move. I feel like that's all I want. That's all this fan base needs is just that one trade.
When you talk about that one trade, it didn't come on draft weekend. Beck Malenstyn was the only move that came. Right now, he doesn't even have a contract. He's an RFA. That was it. Kevyn Adams went into free agency without making a single addition to the roster because Malenstyn was not signed. So that's risky. All right, that is risky. You basically cornering yourself into free agency tends to be a recipe for disaster. Now, when we get into today, I'll say two things. I thought Kevyn Adams had a good day, and I commend him for staying the hell away from whatever that free agent market was. Like, as we said, this is one of the most insane free agent classes in terms of money handed out, term handed out, commitments made, probably since 2016. The cap goes up a little bit and GMs get frisky as hell. So I can't say the Sabres they didn't screw themselves in the cap at all. So it's a plus, but as we'll get into, that might be a minus because they really aren't leaning into their cap space all that much. So why don't we get into the free agent class? We'll start at the top. We'll start at the biggest signing of the day. Jason Zucker. 1 year, $5 million. I guess when I approach this, well, I should preface this by saying, would have liked that contract last year. Really would have liked it. I know the Sabres were after him last year. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if it was the same deal handed out. So I don't know. It's just kind of funny looking at it now. So Jason Zucker. So this is a player who has had a good NHL track record and has previously been a top six forward in the NHL. Now he's 32 years old. He does have an injury history. He split time between two teams last year. This is not your slam dunk top 6 edition. And it better not be your slam dunk top 6 edition in the minds of the general manager.
I don't know,
Now-
man, as the days go on.
Now, Jason Zucker, he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 20-goal seasons under his belt. He's got 1 30-goal season under his belt. And just 2 years ago, he had 27 goals and 48 points with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Last season, only 14 goals. He had 25 points in 51 games with the Arizona Coyotes. Gets traded to Nashville and was mostly in a fourth-line role, which I don't think he's going to be placed in Buffalo. So a little bit of a scoring dip, but the impacts seem fairly average to above average. This is not a bad player. Not at all. This is, by all intents and purposes, a good middle 6 option. But then we get into digging a little bit deeper into it. And what I mean by that is, what does it mean for the rest of the Sabres, their forward makeup? Because we'll get into the bottom 6 editions. But look, the Sabres have a plethora of new bottom 6 options. You've got Peyton Krebs, Jordan Greenway, Zach Benson, Jason Zucker, along with Aube-Kubel and Sam Lafferty and
Malenstyn.
So conceivably, there's your 6, right? There's your 6. You look at that, and you would think that makes a ton of sense. That there's your bottom 6, and you can just kind of go from there. But here's the thing. Jason Zucker, obviously, previously in his career, top 6 forward. He's making $5 million. And I don't know. I'm a little nervous. He's a left winger, just like that player that they officially bought out the other day. Am I crazy for thinking that maybe, just maybe, they're thinking of putting him in the top 6? That there's an outside chance. Not even outside, like a legitimate chance.
No, I think that might be exactly what they brought him in to do. You could tell with the money they gave him. Obviously, he was probably asking for a lot just because, he'd have to come here. But no, I do not think you're crazy for thinking that. And honestly, like I said, with each passing day, I just imagine him being on the second line or maybe even the first line. Maybe they move Peterka down back to the kids line. Yeah, I don't know. But that's not what I hope for. I'm hoping for another move, a trade, something to give this roster a little more juice because we need it. Not only that, we need another right-handed defenseman, but we'll get to that later.
I would not be surprised at all. I will say I do really like the signing. I mean, he can play up and down the lineup. Kevyn said that. Lindy said that to Kevyn. So I do really like it. If someone's struggling, he can move up, someone can move down. I guess one of the reasons why I think he will only be a middle 6 player for us, or at least I hope, and maybe lean towards that third line role more, is like Jonas said, we were interested in him last year, and there wasn't a spot in the top 6 for him last year. So he would have been a third liner, pre-Quinn injury, of course, assuming we were interested in him before Quinn got hurt. Obviously, that was like at the draft, so maybe it was after. But if they were interested in him, Quinn pre-Quinn injury, he would have been a third liner. So at least I think that's how they value him, as more of a middle 6 guy, hopefully a third liner. But I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if he might be our biggest addition of the offseason, and it's not good. Not good
It's
enough.
not good.
Because I alluded to it. So today's a good day for Kevyn Adams. And Jason Zucker is a great pickup, and he's your best pickup of the day. He cannot be your best pickup of the offseason. If you walk into training camp, like seriously, think about this. You're in a 13-year playoff drought. You just bought out one of the most beloved players on the team, who was a top 6 player. If you walk into training camp and Jason Zucker was your answer to ending a drought and filling a need in the top 6, that is some Michael Frolik-esque roster construction. Like that can't be good enough, right? Like if you go by offseason with Kevyn Adams, biggest offseason addition in his first offseason. Taylor Hall, pretty good. The season after, Ilya Lyubushkin, Eric Comrie. How about last year? What was his biggest offseason addition? Connor Clifton.
Yeah, Connor Clifton.
If you want to argue Eric Johnson, okay, go ahead.
Those are the only two, pretty much.
And if you nail the hat trick and Jason Zucker is your best addition, like, I'm sorry, even the most, I like to think that we're kind to Kevyn Adams on here, right? Compared to a lot of Doomer fans.
You mean all of our fans? Because today it's been ridiculous. It's all of our fans.
It's been a bad 72, 96 hours on the Bird app.
People are saying we're tanking. I saw a tweet saying someone's like, yeah, we're tanking and Terry's going to sell the team. And then someone replied and was like, there's been no indication of him selling the team and us tanking. I don't know what you're talking about.
But even those people, they will start to be proven right, because you cannot do that. You just can't. And it's like I look at that lineup and it's like there's no, they can't be done adding. There's no
juice. There's no juice.
It's not there's no juice. Like,
there's not enough.
Like I've said before, like that lineup in my mind, like would it still compete for a playoff spot? I think so. But that's not enough.
No.
That's not enough. Look at all the teams that got better today. Are they screwed long term? Sure. But you can't
keep thinking down the road. You can't keep thinking down the road too.
Keep chasing. Like everybody knows. Everybody sees this. And this is why, like, Kevyn Adams did this to himself by not making an addition on draft weekend. Today would have been so much better received. So much better received. This is one of their best free agency days. Man, I struggle to say ever, but
it is ever. We've had no good free agency signings in our franchise history.
It definitely wasn't last. I mean, in the Eichel era, definitely, because even the Taylor Hall edition, overshadowed by Cody Eakin and other pieces added to that amazing roster.
I mean, the jury's still out.
Botterill never had a July 1st as good as this. Neither did Tim Murray, really. So you're going back to the Darcy days, and I don't know. I just, in my mind, like, this would be a real solid, like, think about it. You fixed, like, quote unquote fixed, because we'll see if it translates on the ice, but you fixed your bottom 6 in essentially one day. Even if you take the Malenstyn trade out of it, you still have 6 players to play in your bottom 6. That's a good day. But it doesn't matter if your best bottom 6 addition, Jason Zucker, is catapulted up to the top 6. Because then you're stuck with, I mean, look, I like the makeup of the group, but that group's not going to score. Zucker's your only scorer in that group. Like, that's why you kind of need him in there. He's the only guy with an ounce of scoring touch right now. Unless Benson takes a huge jump his second season.
I mean, I think the jury is still out on how this free agents class performs. I'm glad that they stayed away from the big contracts. So I think that's just a win in my book right off the rip. I think we did improve in the bottom 6, but again, it's all going to come down to how they perform on the ice when the season comes around. So I don't want to, put a stamp on this and say this is our best free agency class in a long, long, long time. I mean, the bar for that's pretty low.
I was going to say that's not saying much, so it's not that crazy.
Yeah, it's not saying much. But still, you never know with this team. But yeah, you can't catapult Jason Zucker into the top 6. It's not going to work. All right, you're plugging the wrong guy into the wrong spot on the roster, and you need the juice for that bottom 6. So you're absolutely right.
I wouldn't say it wouldn't work, because I think during the year he'll be put up there at times. It's just there's better options,
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yeah, I'm not saying it wouldn't work at all. I mean, there could be some good chemistry up there, but I think with everything that's still going on in this organization, with all the picks and prospects we have, and all the roster players we have now, it's like, dude, just go out there and overpay a little bit, like for a trade. Maybe even if it is for a guy on an expiring contract. Like I'm still on the Nikolai Ehlers train. Like if you can get a guy like that in the system, I don't even care if it's for 1 year, because if you could perform well, maybe, snag a few playoff games here and there, you could turn this entire thing around in over the course of 1 year, and you won't have to overpay next year in free agency. I mean, maybe a little bit because, state taxes and all that, and Florida's getting the discounts, but you
Huge
won't have
topic
you
of
don't have the
discussion recently.
you won't have the stigma of going to Buffalo for your career to die. You won't have the fear of, players not wanting to sign with you. Or I'm sure Kevyn Adams has had a really difficult time this offseason, and it's proved it so far. He's been out there trying to make these trades, and people are asking for too much. He's not willing to budge on certain things, and that's the sign of a good GM. But at a certain point, you got to just, you got to sweeten the deal somehow. You got to get this thing over the finish line, and hopefully soon, because again, to reiterate, with each passing week, this fan base is just going to grow more restless. The patience is going to wear out quicker in the season if they don't get off to a hot start. This could turn really quick. And if they don't add anyone via trade, I would say you start warming up Kevyn Adams' seat like right now. Like
It's a failure of an
starting.
offseason.
Yes,
It's a failure.
absolutely. And
It's 100% a failure.
we said going into this offseason, if he doesn't do anything, it's a complete failure. And he's done things, but he hasn't made the big signing yet. Or the big trade, the big move, whatever you want to call it. But he knew that, especially from seeing how the team performed last season. So he knows what he needs to do, and we know what he needs to do. So if he doesn't get it done, start warming the seat now, because, we could be in for a regime change this time next year.
It wouldn't be a regime change, I think. Karmanos is right up. There you go.
What, you think Karmanos just moves into the GM spot and Adams is fired?
Yeah, I do.
Fair enough.
All right. On to the rest of the bottom six. So quick hits. The other two guys they added. Sam Lafferty, 2 years, $2 million per year, and Nicolas Aube-Kubel for 1 year, $1.5 million. We'll talk about Lafferty. As of right now, it seems like he slots in as their fourth line center. Now, look, Sam Lafferty, not the greatest player in the world, especially offensively. He's not going to give you anything there, but he's always held up in his own end. And he's an energy guy. He's a juice guy. He's going to lay the body. He's a speedy player. He's going to give you 100% each shift. He's one of those archetypes. He is basically there to give you those heavy shifts. Aube-Kubel, on the other hand, one-way player, but that one way, he does extremely well. He put up some of the best defensive metrics in the league last year. Now, those can be up for debate because he basically spent all of that time creating those metrics with Nick Dowd in Washington. Aube-Kubel played a lot of those minutes with Malenstyn. So it's interesting. It's interesting if they plan on keeping those two as a duo, maybe with Sam Lafferty, I don't know, and seeing if they can repeat some of those results. But Kubel, same thing. Speedy guy, going to give you those heavy shifts, but he has a lot more defensive upside there, I think. So there's your bottom six. What do you guys think about those signings?
Christian, go ahead. Then I got some stuff.
I'll keep it short and sweet. Uh, this team, this regime, this coaching staff had a vision for its bottom six, and they went out and they put that vision to work. They got fast and they got physical players. They got good defensive players. The scoring might be a little lackluster, but that might not be what they want to be about down in the bottom six now. It might just be about, playing solid defense. Maybe they're trying to build this team into a more well-rounded roster. Um, because we saw last year, they had complete breakdowns, like multiple times a game. You saw how the first periods, like just thinking about them, just flashbacks to 2 minutes into a game. Can't even get comfortable before you're down 1-0. So I like it. I like the physicality they brought in. I like the speed they brought in. And
Say it.
the grit. I needed the grit.
The hits. The
The
hits.
hits, baby.
Hits equals wins.
This is the most we've ever seen Kevyn Adams talk about hits, by the way. Like in
Yeah.
years past, it was like, oh, they don't need to be physical. They'll be physical like in their own ways. He's specifically bringing up how many hits these players are having.
It will be interesting. Look, Lindy's teams have really never been that type, but even that, Granato was definitely on the. I mean, people would just call him soft, but he was definitely on that end of belief where he preached about it. He said, "I don't tell players to go and hit people. I don't tell them to chase hits." But that mentality, it's in the back of their head. So it's like, well, what's chasing hits? Should I go after him now? And inevitably it led to them being one of the worst hitting teams in hockey. So, plus it coincides with how young they are. They were never going to be a high hitting team with their youth. So, plus, you're at these fan events and Kevyn Adams, every other question is being asked. Is Owen Power going to be a meaner player? Or are you going to get someone to protect Dylan Cousins? So inevitably, he's probably thinking to himself, like, you know what? I need to shut these people up.
We
I'm
need an
sick
enforcer.
I'm sick of it. So, no, it's definitely, look, they've been preaching about it. They want to be harder to, how many times has Kevyn Adams said in the last 2 months, we want to be harder to play against?
In just about every sentence.
It's a clear vision. You're seeing that, you're trading a second round pick for Brett Malenstyn, giving term to Sam Lafferty, and signing a guy like Nicolas Aube-Kubel. So this is their vision. And for the first time in quite some time, their bottom six, it has an identity. It does. We'll see if it translates to winning. We'll see if it's a good identity. I can tell you that they're not going to score. It's not going to be a lot of goals in that bottom six, but you don't have Victor Olofsson down there anymore. You don't have Tyson Jost down there anymore. Your defensive upside definitely increased. And you're going to have another year of Zach Benson. And you're going to have Jordan Greenway. He basically wasn't a bottom six player last year, so you might as well call that a new addition in some sense. So it's basically a whole new bottom six, aside from Krebs and probably Benson too. So it's exciting. And as we saw, Zemgus Girgensons will not be returning to the Sabres. He signs in Tampa Bay for 3 years. So it's officially a new era for
Goodbye, King.
For that bottom six, and it is exciting to see. I'm excited to see how it works out. Kevyn Adams said at his press conference today that Lindy Ruff had a large amount of input on who he went after. So this is just as much Lindy's vision as it is Kevin's. So excited to see how they bring it to life.
Kevyn Adams does have this vision for the bottom six. Even if you don't like the signings, you can't disagree that there is a vision, not only just the physicality, but also speed. Like all three of our new additions, that being Malenstyn, oh boy, this is going to be a name I can't pronounce.
Aube-Kubel.
Aube-Kubel.
Oh my God.
And Lafferty. Okay. They're all fast. So these stats from Jay Fresh. So this is just basically the most, it's based on their speed bursts above 20 miles an hour throughout the whole league. So this is everybody if they played more than 200 minutes. These 3 players are all in the top 50. 2 of them, which is Aube-Kubel and Lafferty, are in the top 12 for the most speed bursts in a game or throughout the season. And then Malenstyn is 46th out of all the players in the league. So that was a clear vision that they want to get faster and more physical. And that I think that all leads to also the forechecking. They wanted to get harder forechecking. They wanted these guys to be able to dump and chase and then actually get to the puck, unlike our forechecking the past few years where we dump it in and it comes right back out.
Yep. Yeah, the 2 Fs, fast and physical.
Yep. And then speaking of Malenstyn and Aube-Kubel, they did play together last year. So there is 20 lines last year that played over 400 minutes. And one of them was Malenstyn and Aube-Kubel.
Was it with Dowd?
Yes, it was with Dowd. Yes. So there's only 20 lines. They played 426 minutes together. Now I'm getting all these stats from Money Puck. They had the lowest expected goals for. I mean, that shouldn't be a surprise. They're the 4th line. Other lines are McDavid, Nugent Hopkins, Hyman, Kachuk, Verhaeghe, Bennett. Like it's a lot of the better lines in the league. But this 4th line stayed together pretty much the whole year for the Capitals.
And the difference between those two is those other lines that you mentioned. I mean, maybe Bennett's line. I mean, what was the Bennett line? What was that trio?
It was Kachuk, Bennett, and Verhaeghe.
So yeah, that's a line was not getting probably a ton of defensive zone starts. And Connor McDavid's line was definitely not getting a ton of defensive zone starts. The Dowd, Aube-Kubel, Malenstyn line, that one was getting defensive zone starts. They were not given the easy assignments. So, it's Money Puck, great tool, but it's probably not the most accurate form, but it's a good indicator. Like, that is not inaccurate.
And with you saying that, with all their defensive zone starts, out of the 20 lines, they were second with the least percent goals against, only behind Nyes, Matthews, and Marner. So while they're not going to produce anything offensively, they were basically a shutdown line for the Capitals. That is what you should expect. And actually, if you were to bring the minutes down to 300, there's only about 40 lines that have played 300 minutes. And out of all of them, they were still the 3rd best for goals against. So Malenstyn and Aube-Kubel have been very successful together in the past, at least last year, as the shutdown 4th line. And I think that's what you got right here. You got a physical, fast, hopefully shutdown line that you could match up against other teams' top 2 lines.
Do you think those 2 players might suffer from not playing with Nicolas Dowd?
I think so. Dowd is one of the most underrated players in the league, I think. But, hockey's a team sport. It's not, and Dowd's not Connor McDavid. He's a very good player, and I don't like the Sabres were in on him. So it honestly would have been interesting to see if they just reunited the Holy Trinity. But they'll miss him a bit. They probably
Right.
like Aube-Kubel's defensive numbers last year were nuts. They were nuts. They were probably a large part due to Dowd. But they're 2 good defensive players. Very good. I mean, here's a fun quick guessing game. This is going off Evolving Hockey. Aube-Kubel and Malenstyn. What percentage of offensive zone starts do you think they got? The 2 of them. They're both the same number.
What
Like,
is
give me,
like
a
an
percentage.
average
It's not-
number?
I don't know what an average is.
Because
Guess, just think about it rationally, in your head. They're a defensive zone line, defensive zone players, so they're going to get a majority of defensive zone starts. But what percentage of their starts do you think were in the defensive zone?
I'm going to go 15%. Offensive zone or
Defensive zone. Defensive zone.
Oh, 85%.
Actually, no, offensive. My bad. Offensive.
15%.
Okay. JP?
I was going to say 25.
2%.
Oh my God.
2%.
They're leaving them out to dry.
2%. They only started in the offensive zone 2% of their shifts. Think about how insane that is. That is not an easy assignment at all. So I think there's a clear vision there. That's what they want them to bring over to this team. So yeah, they have an identity now. They're, this is going to be a bottom six. Like I said, they can't score, but they're fast. They're going to hit. They're going to forecheck, and they can play defense. But when you talk about that, like, that's fine. If that's your bottom six group, if that's what they do, that's great. It just makes it more apparent. That means your top six needs to carry the offensive load. And if Jason Zucker's your big addition, that makes it all the harder to do. It just makes it more apparent they need another addition there. They just do. They just do. It's unacceptable if they don't get it. It doesn't mean they won't survive without it. But that's not the solace that Kevyn Adams should take. Like, go and make your team better right now. In a big way, like a big splash. And Christian talked about this last episode, and he's mentioned it today. They still don't have that guy, that bona fide guy that they're going to come in, they're going to do this, score goals, do whatever, play the role you need them to. Like, hey, I think Aube-Kubel is a good addition. I think Malenstyn could fit their needs. Sam Lafferty, I'm not the biggest fan of the player, but on the fourth line, you will be fine. And Zucker, good player, but he's basically replacement to slightly above replacement level. They don't have that big guy yet. That big addition where everybody just looks and be like, wow, that's a great addition for the Sabres. Because you will find your doubters about Zucker. I mean, he only had 14 goals last season. They need that. They need that. If they're going to build their bottom six this way, that's great. I think the Oilers showed, and even the Panthers to a degree. I mean, what was the Panthers' fourth line in the Cup final? It was Kevyn Stenlund, Kyle Okposo, and Ryan Lomberg. Like, none of those players are great players. You don't need your entire lineup to be, you don't need to construct the 05-06 Sabres where Thomas Vanek's on your fourth line.
They don't all have to be all-stars.
You don't have to roll 4 scoring lines.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even have to roll 3. You can survive with 2 scoring lines, but they have to be good scoring lines. And the Sabres have one, and I trust Cousins and Quinn. I do. I think they're going to have big seasons, but they need another. They need 2 legitimate scoring lines.
They're missing one guy, man.
You also need a good power play with that.
And Jason Zucker is going to help with that. He is a good power play player, and we know they're going to make that a big focus going into next season.
Mm-hmm.
As we get closer to the season, look, I think there's a real optimistic spin on looking at the beginning of the season. I think Tage is due for a huge season. I think Cousins is due for a big bounce back, and I think Quinn's due for a big breakout. And seeing Benson take another step, and seeing Peterka maybe take another step, and maybe seeing Owen Power rise to star status. Like, there's going to be positive things to talk about that are going to make you excited and make you believe that they're a playoff caliber. And you could do that right now. But I need to emphasize they just need another addition. Jason Zucker cannot be your biggest forward addition walking into the 14th season of a 13-year playoff drought. All right, so that's the forwards. That's enough complaining. Even complaining. Like, I like the moves. Like I said, Kevyn Adams, I thought, had a good day. It just comes with the asterisk. There has to be more. There at least has to be one more big move. So on to the defense. So Kevyn Adams makes 2, I would say, NHL, in the realm of the NHL moves. So Jacob Bryson, back for another season. 1 year, $900K. And the Buffalo product, Dennis Gilbert, signs with the Sabres, 1 year, $800K.
Makes sense. Had a good season last year. Didn't want to tender him at the amount that he was going to be paid. Same thing as, who was it last year that we did that with?
Jost.
With Jost. That's what I thought. good signing. Yeah, hopefully he's our seventh guy, and I'll be happy if he's our seventh.
I know it really hurt you to say those words, JP. I know
Last year, he played good.
grit in your
Prior to
teeth.
that, he was not good. Last year he was good. I'm not a
Yeah,
Bryson hater anymore.
I'm glad he's back. Obviously not at the 1.9 that we were technically supposed to pay him at that RFA tender. Yeah, solid deal, and I'm glad he's going to be back. There's still a need in defense, even with signing Gilbert as well. Um, that right-handed fourth defenseman is just it is a glaring black hole on this team right now.
It's going to be interesting because all the focus is definitely on the top six edition. Um, are they going to run back the same decor? Like, are they? And I feel like this one has, I feel like it's more likely because, they didn't get any of the big fish, which is okay because, I mean, what was the best deal of the day? I guess Matt Roy. He went
Yeah,
for
his
6 years,
was a
but it was
pretty
only
good deal.
5.5. So, that's a
Yeah.
decent deal. But you're not going near Brandon Montour with a 10-foot pole.
Got the Tage deal.
No thanks to the Chris Tanev deal. Great player. He's 34 and he has an injury history. I'm not signing him for 6 years.
They signed him for 6 years? I thought it was 4.
No, it was 6 years, $4 million.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I'm trying to think who else. Sean Walker went to the Hurricanes for 5 years. No thanks. He's 30 years old.
Boosh,
And look,
Dumba.
and
The Boosh.
as always, were these guys interested in the Sabres? Probably, most of them probably not. But still, like I wouldn't have wanted to go anywhere near those contracts. The defensive market was insane today. Insane. That said, it's gonna be weird if they just run it back again. Like I like the depth they've added. You've got Bryson, you got Gilbert, Jack Rathbone was a decent pickup, I think, for the AHL. And you're going to have Ryan Johnson in that mix, but like, where's the move? Like, where's the new spin on the decor? Like, where's the new? Okay, like this is a good addition. It's not there, and in an ideal world, you would make that addition alongside the top six edition as well. We'll see. We'll see. All my chips are in the basket of top six forward, but yeah, I think it's going to be weird if they just re-sign Yoki Haru for like $3.5 million for another season and then just decide to trot out the same D group again.
It would be weird. I think like a lot of us were kind of expecting Yoki to be dealt somehow, especially at that contract. Like I saw someone projecting him to get $4 million. It's like that's way too much for him. Like if that's the amount, like you just got to get rid of him. But I would not be surprised if they just run it back because I don't really know who else is out there left. I mean, obviously it would probably have to be through a trade again. Um, so I don't know.
Is
I wouldn't be surprised.
is Colin Miller available?
He returned to the Jets. Yep.
I didn't see that.
One of my underrated picks. I was very
Damn.
happy that I was also very happy that Aube-Kubel signed because it means I nailed at least one of my additions in my mock off season.
You're
Good
the
job.
first on it.
I had that first.
A lot of people were doing that after, but
It was me.
Jonah had
It was
first.
me. I did that first.
Look at
Yeah.
this. All of this wasn't here before.
But yes, Colin Miller would have been a nice addition, I thought, with the Lindy connection. But yeah, he's back in Winnipeg. So I'm gonna try to pull up the free agents. I really don't know who's left. I mean, so many people signed today. I mean, it was a crazy 2-hour period.
Yeah, I felt like every 5 minutes I was looking down and an insider was telling me a big name defenseman was getting way more money than he deserved. I can't believe they gave Brandon Montour that much money in Seattle. Like Tage
Bot's got
Thompson's
his guy again.
contract,
Bot's got his guy again.
unbelievable.
That wasn't even their worst contract of the day.
Oh my God, dude, Chandler Stevenson.
Oh yeah, we lucked out
7
avoiding that.
years.
Unreal.
7 years. I was terrified the Sabres were going to chase after that.
Yep.
Oh my God.
We got
Oh my God.
just a few notable oh wait, no, these are signings. Never mind. Continue. Continue.
When we say
I'm, like-
we're glad we didn't participate in the free agent market, that's like
That's the
exactly
deal.
the signing we're talking
That's
about.
the deal. Like, oh my God. He's 30 years old. He had a terrible season. $6 million for the next 7 years. I mean, wow. I mean, that Montour deal probably not going to age well. Stevenson, you can't even say it's not going to age well. It just isn't good. It's not good for the player he is now. Ugh, man, yuck.
I was telling you guys.
Yuck.
I was telling you guys. I wish I got paid millions of dollars by being ass at hockey, but I'm just doing it for free. So some people are more lucky than others. But if you want a couple notable free agents that are left, you got Nate Schmidt, you got Tyson Barrie,
Eh,
Nikita Zaitsev, John
No.
Klingberg,
hurt.
Marco Scandella, Justin Schultz. He's left. I'll go right. I'll go right.
Schultz, I guess. Still
I'll go
not the profile they need.
I'll go right
Shillington would
D.
be interesting.
Anthony D'Angelo,
No.
Alex Goligoski.
I don't even think he's playing anymore.
What in God's Felipe Myers? No, he's
No,
like
He's like a
nothing
tweener.
there. Yeah.
Lawrence
Um,
Pilot.
The only names that really the only names that kind of interest me are Schultz. Oliver Shillington I think is a decent experiment, but he's also left-handed. Eric Brandstrom, same thing, like really good fancy stats, but he's an undersized left-handed defenseman. I don't know.
yeah, a lot of these
Um,
guys, they look like they were hurt or they just, I don't know, they're just sitting there. It's a lot of the scraps that are left right now. But there's some interesting names in this field. And by
Chad Ruedel?
interesting, is Chad
Bring
Ruedel
him back?
available? I feel Gustav Lindstrom,
Eh,
Kevin Shattenkirk,
maybe a few years ago. I
Adam
don't know.
Boqvist.
That's
A
like
lot
an
of meh. You're
experiment.
getting a lot of
It's
meh.
I
been
mean,
all mess.
it's-
There's
yeah.
no one. All right, there's
no,
no
there's
one.
not a lot.
If you want someone, trade for someone.
The only good one, like I said, Shillington and Brandstrom I like, but it's not like you just signed two left-handed defensemen today. So, I don't know.
I mean,
They need a right-handed guy. They just do.
there are three former Sabres sitting on this list right now. Mark Pezic, Casey Fitzgerald, and Taylor Fadoon.
Bring back Taylor Fadoon.
I know
Love
JP
that
would
guy.
love Casey Fitzgerald on this roster.
All right, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting to see. I don't know. I really hope they do upgrade from Yoki. It's another one of those things where I just feel like you need a change there. I don't know. I hope they don't keep him just because he says Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen's name really loud before games.
Culture guy.
That is pretty sick.
So yeah, that's where we're at. Goalie additions. There was only one for now. Felix Sandstrom. He's lining up to be the number 3 in the organization. The Sabres will probably make one or two more additions. I would guess. So we'll see where that continues. And then we kind of had a second batch of signings. Brett Murray's back for another season. Mason Jobst got an NHL contract, so that's cool to see. And then the Amherst, we also added Josh Doon. So another Amherst addition. So that's it for day one. So busy day on Adams' side of things. He got the work done he had to. He fixed one thing. He, quote unquote, he fixed the bottom 6.
I keep looking at my phone and I keep getting Twitter notifications, and every single one that pops up and I look over and I can't see it because my phone is locked. I'm just like, please be a trade. Please, for the love of God, be a trade.
All right, there's one more thing I wanted to talk about. The Adams presser. So there was a decent amount of discourse about it. What did you guys think?
I personally didn't think it was as bad as people were saying. At least I listened to it after everybody reacted to it. I definitely wasn't pleased with him saying, I'm happy with where we're at now. But he's also not gonna say like, you know, this isn't good enough. Like we need to be better. Even if he thinks that, like he's not gonna say that just in case he doesn't get anything done. So I didn't think it was as bad as everybody thought, but I could see why people are upset because he shouldn't be done, and it kind of sounded like he was done. But just kind of think it's GM talk.
Yeah, I feel like he was kind of dancing around some questions. And he does that occasionally, but this specific presser was a little bit different because they were really up in his face about they were like, are you gonna make an addition? They were just shooting him straight. They were like, are you gonna make an addition to the top six? Is there any plans to bring in anyone else? Have there been trade talks heating up? And he was just kind of dancing around it saying, yeah, we do our due diligence. And I'm obviously paraphrasing. This is not an exact quote. We do our due diligence and we always, keep in taps with any team that's out there. But I didn't like when he said that he was content with his roster. Um, I feel like he just could have used better phrasing, um, just to cover his own ass. He could have said something along the lines of, "Look, I think we have a good roster, but I think as a GM of this team, it's my job to bring in guys to make this roster better, and I plan on doing that this offseason. I'm going to do whatever it takes to do that." Not knocking the roster we have now because I do believe he made improvements, but also saying, in a way, we're not done yet, and nor should we be done because there is still work to be done, and he should not be going off to his quote unquote cabin until something is done.
I thought it was terrible. I was not a fan. I wasn't, and I understand, I understand the reasonings that people have. People will point to it's just GM talk. People will point to, he's not going to tell you, he's not going to say that the roster is bad or that he doesn't like it. I get that, and I agree with that, and it's dumb. It's dumb to say that he shouldn't say that he's not satisfied, it's dumb to say that he should say he's not satisfied. No, you can say you're satisfied, but it felt very status quo, and how you look at that. The people that think it's just GM talk think another move's coming. The people that don't think that no moves are coming. Pretty simple. So the top six, he definitely danced around it. He basically said, I'm open to additions. Look, that's something that any NHL GM would say today. Even Barry Trotz would say that today. Barry Trotz added Jonathan Marchessault and Steven Stamkos. He's done adding. If you asked him that question, he would probably say he's open to adding a top six forward. So that's my issue with that. But fine, if that was the only thing he said, then it's whatever. Then I could get under GM talk. That quote about using cap space, it pissed me off. It pissed me off. I don't look. They're the Stanley Cup champions, and it's much different. But Bill Zito literally said the other day, "I'm spending to the cap." It doesn't change anything to say you're spending to the cap. So for Kevyn Adams to go to a microphone and say, "Well, I don't really think about spending to the cap. I just think about building my hockey team." Look, man, I'm sorry. Like that is not good messaging. That is not good messaging whatsoever. You're like, how many times this has to be said? Like, you're 13 years into a playoff drought. Like, the Sabres have $20 million in cap space. How much money is Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen going to get? Like, let's say we'll give him an overpay, $6 million. How about Henri Jokiharju? We'll say $4 million. And let's say Peyton Krebs, an overpay like $2 million. So there you go. That's $12 million. You still have $8 million left. And that's
Malenstyn.
over, and Malenstyn, so another $1 million. So you have $7 million left. So it's basically that's the bump that the Skinner buyout gave you.
Yep.
If you don't use that money to do anything, and that's overpaying your guys, that's being very generous. That is the most atrocious Bush League decision that has probably been made in this drought. And that is saying a hell of a lot. You cannot message to your fan base that like it's going to be different, or like I'm going to make big additions, I'm going to reshape the team. You can't build an offseason around your head coach. Because at the end of, like we talked about biggest additions, and like yeah, Jason Zucker would be your biggest addition, but if the offseason stopped today, like if the additions stopped today, your biggest addition is Lindy Ruff. And that can't happen. Your biggest addition cannot be trusting your head coach to fix your team. That's dumb. That's not good. If you like, $8 million or $7 million in cap space, if you do that walking into opening night, that's just unacceptable. No team in a 13-year drought would ever do that. Ever. They would never do that. And to say that you don't think about it, or even the quote he mentioned, he kind of brushed past it where he was like, yeah, if a player says he's not interested in being a Buffalo Sabre, I just kind of write them off as an option. Like, okay, like I know that's your messaging, but holy crap, you can sell players on Buffalo. Like their minds could be changed. Not to jump sports here, but like when LaShawn McCoy was traded to Buffalo, he hated the city. He didn't want to be here. What happened by the end of it? He friggin' loved it here. He said it was the biggest mistake to think it would be a bad thing to come here. Like you can go after players that maybe aren't 100% sold on being a Sabre. It's fine. It's fine. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I know I'm jumping the gun on the Adams hate. I said last episode I would give it till the end of the week, and he had a good day today. And I know this is probably being, I'm taking the pessimist side of how to view that press conference. It didn't sit right with me. It really didn't. And I'm getting mad now. If in a week's time, if the Sabres still have $12 million or like $15 million in cap space, like that's just like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? Why did you buy out Jeff Skinner then?
Yeah, exactly.
Like I know why. He's a negative. It's reasonable to think he's a negative asset. I get that, but then it just becomes you're saving money for
right.
Who are you saving money for? I think we all know who.
We're not going to say it, but we know who. I'm right there with you with the cap situation. Like if you've been living under a rock, we bought out Jeff Skinner. I'm wearing his jersey today. I'm going to miss that guy. Loved him on the team. Great vibes guy. But yeah, if you're not going to use the benefit of why you bought him out this season, you could have waited another season to buy him out.
Is this not the reason you got the additional cap space?
Exactly.
Like if you're done making additions today, like I said, we gave, worst case scenario, overpaying your RFAs. But look, Luukkonen's probably going to get like $5 million. Yoki Haru's probably going to get like $3 million. So that's $8 million. Krebs gets probably like 1.5, or maybe he does get 2. So there's $10 million, and then Malenstyn gets, like 1.5.
$900K or 1 point whatever.
So there, $11.5 million spent. So you still have $9 million to spend.
Exactly.
So why else are you buying out Skinner?
He could be in the top 6 right now. You have Jason Zucker in the third line. You're taking Victor Olofsson's spot, and he could play on the first or second line. Like, what do we do? Are we going to call a guy up? Is that what we're doing? Because if you're calling a guy up, you're sending a message that this team is only here right now to save money. And save money for the guy who's, making arena upgrades and, that are way overdue. And, he's already filling his pockets with the PSLs from the Bills Stadium. Like, I was just talking about, this is another thing. I was talking about it this weekend, just with, we're paying all this money for the stadium, and then we're basically double dipped because we have to pay for PSLs. So it's like, how much money do you want to save? I've had enough with not being at the cap ceiling with this team. This team deserves to be at the cap ceiling. We have a fan base that deserves playoffs. Go out there and act like it, especially as our GM, because you talk for this franchise.
I do agree it would be a complete waste of buying Skinner out if you don't use the cap space. I will play a little bit of the opposing view. And what he mentioned in part of the press conference is that, he has to prepare for extensions like Quinn and Peterka, maybe Byram, and that will get us to the cap ceiling in future years. So I think what he was kind of alluding to is he didn't want to make any bad deals. Like he didn't want to sign Chandler Stevenson, so then we couldn't sign Peterka. So I think that's partially what he was alluding to. But with that being said, that doesn't change the cap for this year. Those extensions do not.
I was going to say that makes no sense. That's a bullshit argument to hide behind.
I think for future years it's fair, but for this year it's not fair. Like
get it.
You
get
spend
a guy on 1 year deal.
That's what I'm saying. You could like if we get Ehlers for 1 year, there you go. There's most of it. But
no, even then, that's only $6 million.
Yeah,
well,
right.
That's still most of it. But yeah,
I mean,
get a
it's
guy
most,
on a 1
it's
year
most
deal
of the
that's
Skinner
expiring.
money, but we talked about like a realistic thing is you have $8 million. I guess I guess it's most of it, but I don't know, man. And that's including Yoki Haru staying. Like, is Yoki Haru going to stay? Is that what we're doing here? Running it. You're not running it back. You're not. We just spent the whole friggin' episode talking about you reshaped your bottom six. But this has been a trend. Like, they take a step, they don't go the extra step. That has been the trend for essentially this regime of the Sabres. For one off season, go all out. Go all out. Sign guys to mercenary deals. Overpay, for 1 year, or just, I don't know. It really irks. It doesn't even, it's not even that they had to spend, but for the GM to say, I don't think about it. Like, what are we doing here, man? What do you mean you don't think about spending to the cap? I play NHL 24. I think about spending to the cap. Like, how can you not think about
using all of your assets to your expense?
Realistically speaking, like if this is probably the first off season where he's had the full, like the chains are off conceivably, like you're able to do whatever you want. So why wouldn't you be like, man, all right, I get to play with whatever money I want for at least for 1 year. How much money do I got? $20 million. Okay, maybe I can get this guy. It's like, and I don't know, like, shouldn't you be budgeting to spend to the cap? I don't know. This could all be mush. Maybe it is GM talk. Maybe I sound like an idiot in 2 weeks. I'm happy to be proven wrong. It just, I don't know, man. There's red flags all over that press conference. I don't know. It worries me because even if like Ehlers, like let's say it's Ehlers, let's say the Ehlers trades happened. We don't know. Is it Kevyn Adams going out to make a move, or did Winnipeg call him back and say, hey, we're ready to do this deal? Let's do it. And it just so happened, like it almost fell into his lap. And he's like, well, we got the cap space. Let's do it. Instead of, look, we got the cap space. We're doing this move, or we're doing another move. That's the difference. That's the difference that I don't have the answer to. I don't know which one of those scenarios it might be or what it could be.
Completely fair. And I think I would say most of, if not basically all the fan base is upset with Adams right now, and I think it's completely justifiable. So whatever emotions you're feeling about Adams, you're probably right. Let's be honest.
And I'll bring up a quote from our good listener, JD Buffalo. He sent a comment to us. He said, quick pre-pod thought. The press conference was so concerning, not because of what he said, but because of what he said within the context of what we have seen for years now. His words and actions are mutually reinforcing. It's the truth, because what he said today reflects the type of GM he is. He's patient. He's methodical. I mean, Christian and I did a whole hour retrospective, and what was the common theme, Christian?
Was patient.
He was friggin' patient. And it's good.
Yeah.
But it's not good right now.
Not right now. No, it is not. You can't be patient now. There's no more time for it.
I think that's the thing that concerns me the most is his job's like on the line almost, and it's almost like there's no urgency. Like he needs to do something. Like unless like I don't like unless Terry's like, no, your job's safe no matter what. But it shouldn't be. It's like there needs to be some urgency. Make a move, and if it turns out to be a bad move, it's not your problem.
One more thing, let me just add this. We are only a few days in.
Yeah,
We're only a few
it is
days
July,
in.
it's July 1st.
It's
It is
July
July
1st.
Yeah.
But look, July, people say, "Oh, you have the whole summer." It's like, no, you
It goes
don't.
quick. It goes
Well,
quick.
it goes quick. And look, I made the joke about the Skinner trade. How many trades happen in August? Even September. The only blockbuster trade I can think of that happened in September is when Erik Karlsson got traded to the Sharks all those years ago. Big
Yeah.
moves don't happen in August and September. They don't. They usually happen in the first week of July. So he has until the end of the week, basically. If maybe he pulls off a shocking move in late summer, fine. I'm not going to give him that long till I'm at my wit's end. If our next episode, most likely, if probably going to be next week, if we're looking at the same roster and there's no inkling that another move is on the way, I'm going to assume this is the roster because this is what happens. GMs leave for their summer cottages at the end of the week because they've had a tough summer or tough year, at least some of them. So
Most of them.
Like I said, I'll save my true anger. I gave a hint of it this episode, but next episode, if nothing happens, if nothing changes, if Jason Zucker is still the second line left winger on this team on the depth chart, yeah, I'll be a little upset. All right, so it's day one. It's day one of free agency. Day one is over. Like I said, when we were wrapping up the draft episode, things could be outdated as soon as tomorrow morning. By the time you're listening to this, Nikolai Ehlers could be a Buffalo Sabre. I don't know. That'd be cool. That'd be really cool. That'd be really
awesome. And Alex
Kevyn,
Iafallo.
that would be really, really cool. Go get my Danish boy. So, other than that, I think that's going to do it for this episode. Like I said, I think we'll speak next week. I think we definitely need to unravel everything else that happened in free agency. We hardly touched on it. I may bring Jesse back on the pod just because Stamkos left Tampa. I need to get his thoughts on that. So, other than that, just looking ahead at some of the other content we have scheduled, we're going to do a prospect pyramid, I think. We're going to do an episode just constructing one. We'll recap the draft as well. Next time we speak, probably next week. If not, I don't know. Stay tuned to Twitter for any updates. But other than that, prospect camp is going on. See how that ramps up later in the week. But after that wraps up, Adams probably heads to his cabin, and then we hit the dead season, folks. The dead point of the NHL offseason.
Hate it.
Worst time to be a fan.
The worst time to be a fan. Last year's felt like forever, and if there's no moves made, this one might feel worse.
But we will still be pumping out content.
Of course, always.
You're damn right.
Always content.
So, with that, thank you very much for listening. If you want to follow us on Twitter, follow us at the Sabre Report, or on Instagram or TikTok at the Sabre Report. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you very much for watching. Click subscribe, click like. If you want updates for the pod, you can follow us on Twitter at Sabre Report Pod. Go give our friends over at the Buffalo Sports Talk podcast a listen. They just released a huge episode. That interview that I teased, they got the chance to interview new Bills signee Joe Andreessen, the Lancaster product. So go give that a listen. That was a great episode by them. And also recapping some of the Bills' recent signings. But I think other than that, thank you very much for listening. Tell me what you thought about the new theme music. I figured it's a new calendar year. Time for a change. You guys miss the old music?
I like the new music.
We still need a bass boosted of the old music. We need to blow up someone's ears one last time.
I'll see what I can do. So, thank you very much for listening. Feel free to leave a review. We'll see you guys next time. And as always, go Sabres.
Go Sabres.
Go Sabres.